We've officially passed the halfway point of the season. 12 races went by and there's 12 races remaining. So I decided, you know what? Let's grade the drivers again. So basically in the quarter point of the season, I graded the drivers. So in the halfway point of the season, I'm going to grade them again. I think this is better than just grading them at the halfway point and at the end of the season, because you can see how opinions build over time. So yeah, here we go. Be sure to subscribe. We're trying to hit 10,000 by August. I know the initial goal was June, but I moved it back 2 months because none of the videos have been doing good. Let's try to reach 300 on Instagram. So like the last video, we're going to be going from last to first in the standings. So, last in the standings is Jack Doohan, who hasn't raced since the Miami Grand Prix. But also last in the standings is Franco Colapinto. I think we can talk about these two. I think they let Doohan go too fast. Like, sure, he was finding his footing towards the end and had that crash in Miami. But I think if they kept Doohan by now, he still wouldn't have scored any points, but I think he would have had better performances than Colapinto. I mean, Colapinto crashes the car the same amount of times as Jack Doohan. In my British Grand Prix video, I completely forgot to mention that Colapinto DNS'd at the British Grand Prix because nobody knew he DNS'd. I know I've been saying in the early season videos that might as well put Colapinto in at this point. It's not me suggesting that Doohan was a bad driver. It's me suggesting that it was very obvious from the beginning that they were going to put in Colapinto. Then they put in Colapinto. They got the same driver, but arguably worse. Literally his first outing as an F1 driver smashes it into the wall at Tamburello. I know Jack Doohan also crashed in his first race, but that's understandable because it was in treacherous conditions. This wasn't free air. It was his own mistake. And sure, Doohan didn't close DRS on Suzuka, but he's also never driven Suzuka before. Colapinto drove in Imola last year in F2. So both of these boys, I'll give them a 4 out of 10. I'll be a bit harsher on Colapinto. I'll give him a 3.5 out of 10 because he was seen as the Alpine second seat savior and it ended up being the exact same crap. P19 in the championship is Gabriel Bortoleto. He's been picking up his form recently after the Sauber has actually became a pretty decent car to drive. And I think I'm going to be pretty controversial here. By the time the season ends, a lot of people are going to start to accept that Bortoleto is the best rookie on the grid. He obviously couldn't show it at the start of the season because the Sauber is literally a hot dog on wheels, but recently he's been reaching Q3, and if you look at the head-to-head with Hülkenberg, it's actually not so bad. I mean, he's tied with Hülkenberg in qualifying, so it's a good sign of early pace from Bortoleto, and race results, obviously Hülkenberg will have the upper hand because he's a more experienced driver. More experienced drivers are generally better throughout the race distance. So for Bortoleto, I'm gonna give him a 6.8 out of 10. P18 in the standings is Oliver Behrman. I gave him a way too high rating the last video. I'm gonna give Oliver Behrman a 7.2 out of 10. Since I made that video, he hasn't scored any points since then. But his finishing positions, honestly, haven't really been that bad. A bunch of P12s and P11s, just narrowly missing out on points. So he's doing above average of, what is expected of a rookie. But comparative to Ocon, I think Ocon is still the better driver. More experience, obviously. Well, based on head-to-heads, yeah, not even close. It's the same story as Hülkenberg and Bortoleto, but I do think Bortoleto is a better driver than Ollie Behrman. And I think people also tend to forget that at the start of the year, Behrman had a more competent car than whatever Bortoleto had. So Ollie gets a 6.5 out of 10. In P17, Yuki Tsunoda, 10 points. His best finish with Red Bull so far was P9 at the Bahrain Grand Prix. The most points he's collected in a race was at the Chinese Sprint. It's not the best for Yuki right now, but I think pretty much majority of the F1 community have already came to accept that Red Bull second seat situation is in fact not a good one. It's gonna be very difficult for Red Bull in its current state to find another driver who can manage to drive that car. Probably Fernando Alonso. He's probably the only other driver who can drive that, but we're, again, not 100% sure. So for Yuki, I think a 5.0 out of 10 is fair. P16, Liam Lawson, he's regaining his confidence recently. First points of the season at Monaco, then his career best in Austria. It's still not what we expected from Liam because Isaac Hadjar in the past few races is still beating him on head-to-head. So for Liam, do I think he's better than Tsunoda? I honestly think him and Tsunoda are tied, so I'm going to give him a 5.0 out of 10. In P15, we have Carlos Sainz. I don't think his position in the championship reflects on how he's been recently. I think he's been a step up than earlier in the season. Do I think it's a big step up? No, but I think it's more similar to what we've seen when he was in a midfield car. I think it's similar to his days in Renault. So Carlos, I gave him a 6.3 last time. I'm going to have to give him a 6.8. There's been an improvement, not a massive improvement, but he's starting to click with the team a lot more. So by the end of the season, we'll see this number go up. In P14, another Spanish driver, Alonso, has been scoring points consistently since Spain. 2 P9s, 2 P7s. He's been maximizing the results of that Aston Martin. What more can you say about Alonso you haven't said before? So I think he's a 7.7 out of 10 this year. P13, Pierre Gasly. I won't touch up on Gasly a lot. I'm just going to grade him a 7 out of 10. Because I do want to save it for a video. Yes, I'm going to make a video on Gasly soon, so look out for that. P12 in the standings now, Lance Stroll. You know, his position in the championship and the amount of points he has is not reflective on how he's been this season. Don't let it fool you. He's been the same old Lance Stroll we know and love. If you look at where he's finishing when he's not finishing in the points. Not a single top like 12, 13 finish. I'll give him the same rating I gave him last time. What did I give him last time again? And then after that, he will just disappear into thin air. 4 out of 10. In P11, Isaac Hadjar, the opinion hasn't really changed. Again, I know you might think I'm being lazy, but really, he's been great. What do you want me to say? What hasn't been said about Isaac Hadjar at this point? 6.7 out of 10. Not quite a 7 out of 10. If I was grading him against the other rookies, probably a 7 out of 10. But since it's a relative to the rest of the grid, a 6.7 will do. P10, Esteban Ocon. I know I gave him an insanely high rating last time. 7.5. I'm going to have to lower it down to a 7. Because I think him and Gasly are pretty much like 1A, 1B drivers. First of all, they're French. And I think their ceiling is similar to that of a Sergio Perez, where they will be great in midfield cars, but when they're given the opportunity in a championship contending car, they're not really gonna translate. So I gave Gasly a 7, so I'll also give Ocon a 7. In P9, we have Nico Hülkenberg. He's had 4 points finishes in a row and has also outscored Max Verstappen in the last 4 rounds, which is insane to think about. As good as Hülkenberg has been, it's not a surprise at all that he's able to extract those performances from that Sauber. You can clearly tell the correlation between the rise in performance and Jonathan Wheatley coming in, but it's nothing to take away from Nico. So Nico Hülkenberg gets a 7.8 out of 10. In P8, we have Alex Albon. He's been so unlucky recently. 3 DNFs in a row from Spain to Austria, and in all of those races, it could have been comfortable points. Actually, not so sure about Spain. He didn't have the greatest showing in Spain. But Canada and Austria could have been points. He was in a very good position in Austria as well. But other than that, I have nothing to say against him. He's been very, very consistent. So Albon gets the same rating as last time, an 8.3 out of 10. Next, we have Kimi Antonelli. Like Albon, he's been so unlucky. Imola, DNF. Spain, another DNF. Austria, DNF. Well, that was kind of his fault. Britain, another DNF because of the Isaac Hadjar crash. Yeah, Hadjar couldn't really do anything there. But he did pick up a podium in the Canadian Grand Prix. Could have been a 1-2 actually, but Red Bull had that undercut with Verstappen. I overrated him last time too much. 7.8, that's absolutely insane. 7.4. Next up is Lewis Hamilton. Oh, he's a very polarizing right now. He has been out-qualifying Charles Leclerc a fair bit recently. I think in the past 4 races, he's out-qualified Charles 4-1. And I said he was terrible in the British Grand Prix in the British Grand Prix video, but thinking about it again, it was mainly Ferrari's race execution. Because I think if it was dry, you know, he would have been up there, but, you know, the wet kind of ruined it for Ferrari. But I'm not going to touch on Lewis too much because, like Gasly, I do have a video on him coming up, so be on the lookout for that. Last time I gave him a 5.7 out of 10. I think I'm going to have to give him a 7.5 this time. He's only 16 points behind Charles Leclerc, and his form has been picking up in the last 4 races. And he's pretty much the same as Carlos Sainz back in 2023. Carlos didn't get his first podium until the 2023 Italian Grand Prix, by the way. This might be the same story. His first podium in Ferrari in Monza would actually be beautiful. So you know what? I don't mind seeing that. So yeah, Lewis gets a 7.5. In P5, Charles Leclerc, again, one that I don't really have to say a lot for. The Ferrari has not been up to what it's expected at the start of the season. Everybody expected them to be at the top. It's just not the case this year. This car is very hard to drive. He's the only podium sitter for Ferrari. He's had brilliant performances. This man gets an 8.9 out of 10. And yes, I rated him too low the last time. You know what? Let's talk about P4 and P3 at the same time. Russell and Verstappen. I think these two are the best drivers in F1 right now. Obviously, Verstappen has the edge. There's no doubt Verstappen is the best driver. But George Russell, man, is he good. Whenever he has the car under him to perform, not necessarily the fastest car of the week, just the car under him to perform something that he's very comfortable with, he produces magnificent results and is also the only non-Red Bull McLaren race winner this year. There is a legitimate possibility to pair the two best drivers on the grid right now. And it seems really exciting on paper, but they're probably going to let Russell go, and Antonelli will stay at Mercedes for development, which is kind of a shame, but that would be such a good lineup. It would be great for entertainment as well, but I don't think Mercedes wants to go through that again. As for the ratings, however, Russell gets a 9.2. Verstappen, I gave him a 10 out of 10 last time, but as the season's progressed, it hasn't been perfect. I gave him a 10 at the time because his execution in the races up until that point, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, have pretty much been perfect, but now I don't see that to be the case. Like, for example, Miami, he got absolutely cooked by Piastri, and it showed that maybe the ahead of the apex thing isn't going to last very long. And then Spain, we all know what he did in Spain, but he's not been bad. He's still the best driver on the grid, but it's not perfect. So it's a 9.5 out of 10 from Verstappen. And lastly, we have Piastri and Norris. You're 1-2 in the championship, only separated by 8 points. And let me say this, at the beginning of the season, I had Oscar comfortably ahead of Lando, but now, as the season's progressed over time, these two have been pretty equal, and you can also sort of see the pressure kind of being built up on Piastri in these past 3 races. I'm still gonna have to give the edge to Piastri, but one very controversial opinion I have, I don't know if it's controversial or if people will agree, Piastri is not a top 3 driver on the grid. Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc are better and more proven than Piastri. And yeah, it mainly comes down to that. Experience. These drivers are seasoned. It's still early days in Piastri's career. And you can also see that he still has some flaws in qualifying. You know, he can't really hook an entire lap together. He still has, a few yellow sectors here and there. That's why he lost pole in Japan. Possibly even in Britain. Monaco, that brother was sliding around everywhere. So, yeah, I'm gonna give Piastri an 8.7 out of 10, and I'm gonna give Lando Norris an 8.5 out of 10. Here are the rankings based on the scores I gave them this time, and here are the rankings based on their median scores. I don't know if I'll do one for the late season, or if I should save one for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I'm not decided on that yet, but anyways, thanks for watching today's videos. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.